Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. And are there any announcements? Okay, don't see anybody raising their hand for an announcement. And we'll move on to the presentations. So the first one is a library outreach tool, and Ray Hawley is going to be giving us some information.
Good evening, Chair Fox and Commissioners. Ray Hawley, Community Relations Manager. A while back, I was asked to create a generic slideshow that can be used as an outreach tool. Can you hear me better? A generic slideshow that can be used as an outreach tool. This is the current version of it, and after discussing this with the director today, I thought I'd present it to you as though you were hearing it as a friendly audience. So I'm going to make sure that the thing is on. Where's the green thing? I have to be helped here. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So thank you, Imaginary Rotary Club or group that we're speaking in front of. I'm Ray Hawley. I work for an organization with a $36 million annual budget, more than 200 employees, 16 locations where we serve more than 250,000 people in Sonoma County. It's the Sonoma County Library. Now, most of us know that modern libraries have expanded their services and their scope, but we do it in a way that balances old and new. Our 16 locations span the county with one central library, 11 branches, 2 rural stations, 3 special collections, and a headquarters where we manage all the behind-the-scenes activity. The Sonoma County Library is a government agency. Like all government agencies, we are owned by the people in our jurisdiction. In this case, that jurisdiction is Sonoma County. We're complicated. In addition to partnerships with all 9 cities and the county, we have an 11-member library commission, 9 library advisory boards, plus we get help from a library foundation, 10 Friends of the Library groups, and other support organizations like the Roseland Library Coalition and our friends from Lantern. A few numbers. More than half the people in Sonoma County are library card holders. We are open more than 700 hours a week. Last year, 2.8 million items circulated at our libraries. In addition to many thousands of hours, our patrons spent on public computers, free Wi-Fi, 3D printers, and more. Our funding is almost entirely public. We are grateful to Sonoma County property owners whose properties were assessed at more than $94.2 billion last year, and who paid a small fraction of that, a bit more than $20 million, toward library services. We're also grateful to Sonoma County voters who approved Measure Y in 2016, a 1/8 of 1 cent sales tax that provides us another 11 to 12 million a year. We spend those funds on service. Almost 2/3 goes to staff. The rest is on facility maintenance and improvements, technology, classes, programs, events, and more. Fully 10% of our expenses are on collections, the physical and digital items that you borrow from us every week. We have more than 1 million items you can borrow and millions of bits and bytes in digital resources. So what about those digital resources? Consumer Reports, it's free with a library card. The New York Times, free with a library card. The online edition of Britannica, free with a library card. Classic films, digital books and magazines, language learning, software and business training, it's all free with the Sonoma County Library Card. The Measure Y sales tax has allowed us to leap into the 21st century with more of everything you've come to expect from your modern library. Since Measure Y, we increased hours by more than 30%. We reopened on Mondays. We increased hours on other days. We're investing a lot in facilities, adding more technology and planning significant improvements at every branch. Programs abound at our libraries, programs for all ages and needs. Every branch has interesting and educational programming every day. Last year, we removed a significant barrier to access. We eliminated overdue fines. If you lose a book, a game, a CD, or a DVD, you still have to pay for it. But if you're a little late, don't worry, just bring it back. It's all good. Families were staying away from our libraries because of fines, and that doesn't help anyone. Books don't change lives when they're sitting on a shelf. Are you too busy to come to the library? We can meet you in cyberspace. Our website and our mobile app can help you manage your account, check your holds, or explore our massive digital resource library 24/7. Now, who gets to use this fantastic public resource? At Sonoma County Library, we welcome everyone, inclusive of ethnicity, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, country of origin, age, faith, ability, politics, or socioeconomic status. And that's the end of my presentation. I'd love to take questions about your library.
This is great, Ray. Is this available, is this a PDF or is it a PowerPoint?
It is available either way. As you could tell, this was intended as a system-wide presentation that can be modified. It was created in PowerPoint, so it can be easily modified. You modified a previous version of it to speak to the Petaluma City Council. If anyone wants to speak to their jurisdiction, whether it's Windsor, Cloverdale, Sebastopol, whatever, I can modify it for you and insert branch-specific slides, or I can send you the PowerPoint with some tips, and you can do it yourself.
Do you have the notes for the slides, too?
I have them as of about an hour ago. They're not inserted into the slides, but that's the next step.
Okay, because there was some good information there, but it wasn't on the slides, so you couldn't even...
Sure, no problem.
Okay, cool.
Okay. And if you like, I can, after I add those notes and update a couple of other things, I can email the PowerPoints to all of you sometime this week.
Lest we haven't said it, it looks terrific, really terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Barbara?
Thank you. We've needed this for a long time. I think, yes, when we talk to our jurisdictions, we're going to be talking about different kinds of stuff sometimes, a little more specifics and so forth. Did you say 30% more hours? When I think the number we're using is 35% more hours.
I modified that to more than 30 because 2 weeks ago you modified the hours at H&G, and I haven't gone and recalculated it.
Okay. And also the budget number, did you say 36 million?
That's our expense budget this year, yes.
Okay, I thought we're like 32, but anyway, can't.
I can double check with the CFO. This is our dress rehearsal, so we're working out the bugs.
I had a third question, speaker bureau kind of thing. So we can modify this when we go out to talk to jurisdictions, but you're talking about also going out and talking to service clubs and so forth. And who do you think that would be? Would that be mostly you or other staff? Or?
I would hope that we would end up with a speakers bureau that would consist of, be led by commissioners, with staff available to help in any way possible. But there's lots of library lovers out there. There's library advisory boards. There's lots of very skilled people at all levels in the staff. We could support you in any way you want.
But you see commissioners playing a lead role in those potential.
Well, if you'd like to.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Deborah?
Just to respond, the advocacy committee is talking about that now. We're talking about putting together and looking for people who are interested in speaking on a variety of subjects, so we can all talk about that later.
Anybody else? Well, thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
I know what it's like to put something like that together. Okay. Next, we have a presentation from the Lantern Group from Sebastopol. welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Is this working? Oh, okay. Is that working? Okay. Hi. Good evening. My name is Arlene Callan, and I am the chair of Lantern, the Sebastopol, or West County, actually, which is dedicated to the expansion of the Sebastopol branch. And I'm here to talk to you about our activities over the last few, actually the last couple of years, since the last time we made a presentation. I'm going to tell you who we are and what we've been doing. So first, I'd like to let you know who we are. We're a nonprofit 501c3 charity organization, which we incorporated in 2013. And our purpose is to address the needs of the residents of the West County because we have a very, very busy branch, and the building is inadequate to meet the current and future needs. We need more space for seating. We need more space for library materials, and we need group study spaces. We need a much improved, better designed children's area, and we need a larger meeting room for more programs and events. So to also let you know why we are, again, to follow up on that, we all know that a strong and a vibrant library has the power to change lives. A community without a library, or one where the library isn't meeting the needs of the community, has significant impacts on the health and well-being of everyone, of every individual in the community. And so the library, as a source of education, teaching early literacy skills, as a pillar in our educational network, along with our local public charter and homeschools, we offer resources and support for all those students, elementary, high school, community college students. We offer avenues for lifelong and adult learning. And our Sebastopol Regional Library has a major hurdle in its ability to do this, to deliver services, because of the size of the facility. As our community has needs, we're working to increase our square footage. We would like to increase our square footage to be able to meet the needs that have been documented in the profile of Portrait of Sonoma County, and also in the American Community Survey, as well as other local data using indicators such as free and reduced lunch statistics. For example, the local elementary school in our area, right closest to the library, has a high percentage of students who are, even though you may think we're affluent, free and reduced, they take advantage of the free and reduced price meals. The community is more varied, is pretty varied. So this last spring, our group put together a brochure. This is one of the pages from a brochure that we mailed out to over 15,000 residents in the West County, actually households of the West County. A copy of the brochure is in your packet, and it highlights the resources the library provides. And it also asks for feedback on what the community wants. So that brochure included a survey. It set out why we need a better library facility. Some of the facts you already know. For example, even though we're a small branch, only 10,000 square feet, our circulation is through the roof based on per capita, per square foot, and per items on the shelf. Our library program stats are outstanding, and our door counts put them at the top tier of attendance. So even though the library is 1/3 the size of the other top-tier Sonoma County branches, we are right up there with Petaluma and Central, and have been for years, I might add. We all know that. So the brochure also, it did include a way for the community to send us their feedback. So we had, send us your feedback, tear off, mail it in, and we had people responding both that way and also through our website. We have a website, lanternlibrary.org, and we included an online survey through SurveyMonkey, And so the results were conclusive. We needed a better library building with more space, more books, more seating, a better children's room, and more parking. It's a whole other issue. Our website is up, and we have a comment. Please drop us a note on our website, and we continue to receive input and also in-person comments that are left at the library. Now, let's go to the next slide here. A couple of years ago, we had a grant from the city of Sebastopol to do an expansion feasibility study on the site of our current building. We contracted with Don Alameda of Alameda Architecture to perform this study, and it included a massing study, soil survey, and some recommendations for consideration when the design work for the building gets started. Don is here tonight, and he's available after this presentation to answer questions you may have. So currently this slide is showing the current existing library floor plan. It's, again, about a 10,000 square foot building. It was built at the same time the original, or not the original, but the same era Rohnert Park Library was built, and has basically that same footprint. Then what let's see, let's go back here. I've lost my notes. Uh-oh. So I'm messing around here. So Don's evaluation and the feasibility study, he created some proposed concepts of creating a 2-story building in the same area as our current building. The city of Sebastopol has agreed that the present location is a prime location for the library. It's downtown, and any new construction in that area, they want to go up. They want it to be at least 2 stories. So the massing study looked at, and the feasibility looked at the historical soil summaries and the scenic design tables to inform the concepts. The aesthetic design work needs to be done, or we're not even anywhere near there, but the idea was, could it be expanded? And that's what his work was to show. His recommendations were to have a building, a much larger, basically 2-floor building, maybe up to 20,000 square feet, which would have much more light, natural light. It would be very green building, energy efficient, with energy efficient HVACs, and modern lighting, and of course, completely accessible, ADA compliant, which the current library is very, very challenged in being. This study is included in your packet, the entire thing, the entire study. So what are our next steps? What are we in the road to building a new library for Sebastopol? Well, we want to host public forums. We want to continue networking in our community with other local community groups and partnering with groups such as the Senior Center. We're hopeful that we can get more partners together. We are reaching out to elected officials, and we also are interested and want to get pledges of support for this project. And today we mailed out almost 200 postcards to individuals who filled out the survey from the brochure and gave us their names and addresses and emails so that we could contact them and put them on a mailing list and let them know the status. So we wanted to keep those people informed. So our stakeholders, you are one of our biggest stakeholder. Obviously, the Library Commission is paramount, our city of Sebastopol, the county of Sonoma, and of course the library administration. We always want to keep you all in the loop as to what's going on, and because we need to all be working together to help find a solution to fix our aging and undersized facilities all over the county. We can't do this alone, as none of these advocacy groups can. So we have had conversations with Sebastopol elected officials about a bond measure, whether it's a city or regional measure, and we know there have been conversations about countywide needs. And so the purpose of us being here is to let you know that we're just all very interested in that. We're working on fundraising. We thought the brochure as a major project, it was completed, and now we're regrouping, resetting our goals. Your first question may be, okay, how are you going to pay for that? Well, our answer is we do not know, but that doesn't change the fact that our services are hindered by our facility, our undersized facility. We can fundraise to the best of our abilities and ask you for your help in answering that question. How do we pay for it? So we'd love to get your input, and that's where we are right now. So any questions? And great.
Thanks for the presentation. You have an interesting and looks like practical conceptual plan here. What's the rough cost of this? How much will it cost to do this?
Well, in the study, the feasibility study, there are some ideas, you have a copy in your packet, I believe. If the building were built today, if we were to do a 2-story building to the very, and this is, by the way, I'm sorry, this is Don Alameda. And so he might want to address that, the project cost.
Oh, great. Yeah, it would be a public works project, as you're probably familiar, all your projects are. At this date, or in 2019, I'm projecting that the construction cost would be just under $15 million. And that's construction. Project cost would be more than that, you know, adding permitting and testing, et cetera, which traditionally would probably be just around $25 million for the whole project.
Okay. Thanks.
Uh-huh. Sure. Oh.
Jason.
Hello. I mean, it looks like a good concept. A couple questions. One, is the floor plan up on the website? Because I can't, either my eyesights are going bad or I can't read very well. The different.
We actually, at this point, we don't have this whole feasibility. Do we have the whole feasibility? I'm sorry. We may have it on the website. We ought to have it on the website. And if it's not there, it will be there. Okay. But I believe, I'm not sure that it's on the website right now. I'm sorry. I can't tell you.
And the other question I have is, this is predisposing that the plan is on the existing site, correct?
Yes.
Have you gone to the city council to see if there were any merging of services on a separate site for a new senior center? I know there's a lot of outdated buildings in Sebastopol, library not being the only one. So I'm wondering if you brought to the council's attention to see where it is within their public works, and if they have any ideas on approaching the concept of updating or a new library.
Yes, thank you. That's a very important question, and we have been we have worked with the city. We've informed the city. The city is well aware of what we're trying to do, and also they own this. They obviously they provide the building for us. They also provide the building for the senior center, which is close to the library, and in the middle is a parking lot. And so, of course, the parking lot is very impacted by both the library and the senior center, and any development would have to, include possibly that. So that is definitely something the city I know they're thinking of it, and different members of the City Council have talked of it. We are making this presentation. We wanted to come to you first, and we're making this presentation to the City Council in the middle of the month also. And we, again, want to work closely with the Senior Center, with the city, and what can be done. But we did go to the city. We have gone to City Council previously, and because we had public meetings in the past about the siting of a new library, if we were going to have a new library, where would it be? The current site is very desirable, and the public wanted it. Of course, if the city were given a piece of land somewhere and if somebody wanted to build a library, you know, out somewhere else, not right in that space, certainly that would be a consideration, you know, so. Hope that answered. Andy?
First, thanks very much for the presentation. I have a follow-up question, I guess, for you, Don. Just a little context around the figures that you, and I realize these are just estimates.
Right.
With the conceptual plan that was shared with us, what's the total square footage of the proposed library, and what's the per square foot estimate that plays into the figures that you shared?
Okay, let me look that up. It's just under 25,000. I think it's closer to 24,000 square foot. So you could do the math there. And my background is I work exclusively on public works projects. Municipalities and school districts are my clients. So it's based on that, as well as if you look at the back of the study, there's a number of library projects that have been completed over the last 5 years, and it's basically rough based off of those empirical costs from those projects.
So if we're looking at around 24,000 square feet and the estimated project cost was around 25 million, sounds like we're at about $1,000.
Right, exactly. If you look on, when you have time later, you can look on page 18, and for today's dollars, the construction cost is about $665 a square foot. The project cost is about $1,164 a square foot.
And what, page 18 of what, I'm sorry?
Oh, the feasibility study, though, I believe was shared with you.
Was that in the packet?
I believe it's in the packet. Anyway,
we obtain a copy of this.
Oh,
I don't know. I haven't seen one.
Okay, well, we have not seen it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was in the packet. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, sorry to make you repeat things we should have seen, but I appreciate.
No, I'm here to answer. I'm here to answer the questions.
What we're suggesting is you should send this to the library so it can be provided to the commissioners.
I'm sorry, that was my oversight. I thought I had sent it to you. I'm sorry.
We'll be happy to share it with you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Barbara?
Thank you. Hi, Arlene. Nice to see you in this capacity. I appreciate the updated presentation, and we had a presentation from Lantern when former Commissioner Helena Whistler, who was our chair at that time, I see, when she was the chair. And at that time, my memory is that the funding mechanism was something like a property tax out to Bodega Bay area, or some kind of a broad property tax is what people were thinking of at that time. I wasn't sure if you had pursued that any further. Secondly, I was interested in the conversations with elected officials. I mean, the way this has normally been is, you know, the individual cities or jurisdictions that put the buildings up. So are you talking to elected officials besides Sebastopol City Council?
No, at this point, not at this point. Well, actually, LAFCO, getting back to your first question regarding how would it be funded, and at that point, a couple of years ago, with perhaps a district bond, creating some kind of a district, but creating a district is tricky, obviously very tricky, and I think there was some discussion at LAFCO, but I would have to, I really don't know where that would be. not sure if perhaps another Clark Mitchell may have done that. I'm not sure. Clark Mitchell is our chair former chair, who's actually been the chair for quite a while here.
I just wanted to say that there's been discussion of a mellow roost district, which has been done before to include both the city of Sebastopol and the whole use district for the library, so that people would be paying, who use the library, would be paying extra property taxes, not just the city who would be responsible for building it. But it gets very complicated between the county and the city and getting that to work.
So from that standpoint, then the elected officials would be talking to county supervisors as well as the City of Sebastopol Council. And at this point, you're still focusing on council.
That's correct.
Okay. And then, of course, it's very difficult without redevelopment funds to come up with a big chunk of money like this. Very difficult for anybody. Let's see, I had one other question, but I can't read my writing, so thank you.
Any other questions? I have some. I went to a meeting that took place in a parking lot just above the library, I don't know, some time ago. And it was done by Sarah Gurney and Patrick Slater, I believe. And they envisioned, you know, from the community center down to the library, a complex. And looking at these plans, there doesn't seem to be an acknowledgement or a connection to that discussion. Has that discussion disappeared and gone away?
Oh, well, I think they're still discussing that. This study was done previous to that meeting that we had, which happened, I think, maybe it was in the spring. It was happening. So, but no, the massing study that was done is not, you know, is to see is it feasible to actually even put a second floor there to create a two-story building. If we were to have in conjunction with the senior center, which is on the other side of the parking lot, if Patrick Slater thought there could be built a big library, a big parking garage there that would be basically on one level. It could be going into the library, it could be going into the senior center, it could be going into the street, and as far as I know, they're still trying to have meetings such as they had with us in the parking lot. They haven't yet had meetings with the businesses on this concept. They also wanted to go have meetings with people within the neighborhood. So in speaking to city council members about that concept, that's still just in the very preliminary stages.
So you've moved beyond that, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, that could still be happening. We're just, the massing study that was done is just looking at the library building itself, okay, without taking into consideration the parking garage or the parking lot situation in particular.
Yeah, as far as the study went, we did look at, it is feasible to bring a second floor entry off of the parking garage. We didn't really elaborate it on the study so much because that would be a considerable more costly endeavor to build a parking garage there. I've renovated a number of parking garages for the city and county of San Francisco, and that's a considerable added expense. But you know, if it was something that was desired,
a joint partnership is what it would have to be.
It would have to be a joint partnership to make that feasible, I would imagine.
Okay, so I have another question. Are you working at all with our facilities department? I mean, this is a county system and the whole county is involved in it regardless of whether we want it that way or not. Are you working at all with our facilities people?
We're not doing, we haven't. Ray has come to our meetings. We are not, we haven't really.
Okay.
I don't, we did actually, over the course of the last few years, because we have been meeting as a group since 2013, when Brent Lear was director, we met with the facilities manager then, and the facilities report, we went through the facilities report. We're very interested in being part of, working with the facilities report and recommendations that are done with the facilities. So, and I believe that that manager came to one of our meetings.
Okay, and so I have one last question. Is the financing of it? I haven't talked to anybody else on the commission about this, but I do have some personal reservations about the Sebastopol Library going out and doing their own bond measure and not having it be part of the system. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a system. This is not just Sebastopol.
Right, right.
And I am quite concerned that.
Well, that's why we don't want to do something like that. I mean, that's why we don't know how to really proceed, and we want to just make sure that the commissioners know that there is a group that's very willing to work toward this, okay. However that is, okay. As a district.
So you're not adverse to working in partnership with us to, and
I think the presumption was that you would be taking your lead on it. I mean, yeah. It would be your program. We're just trying to facilitate or bring to the attention that it's something that you may want to endeavor in. I mean, if anything, it may be a joint venture with you as a JPA and the city of Sebastopol having other needs out there. But yeah, it would have to be a bond through you. That's without saying.
Okay. I'm just trying to clarify things and make sure, because I know we've been working very hard to create a system and not individuals. So, okay. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Barbara?
Well, I'd be interested, and this is to our director, having just hired a fund development manager, looking at large capital fund development measures, if our director had any comment about suggestions to the Lantern folks about how we might proceed.
No, not specifically. We're just beginning the process of the fund development capital campaign and looking at all of the needs system-wide so that we can address everything comprehensively. But I have not met with Lantern recently, so we really don't know where we want to go with that yet.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm glad you've updated us and we understand kind of a little better where you are.
And thank you very much for this. And I will get a copy of the feasibility study, send it in so you all have copies of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can send it to Jane Clickman at the library, and she'll disperse it.
That was an oversight. I'm sorry. You'll get it soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your work for the library. Okay. Public appearances. I see one raising her hand up there. What? Okay. You may approach the bench.
Oh, I'm supposed to use the podium up there. I apologize. I'm closer now. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Ortiz, and I'm president of the Sonoma County Public Library Foundation. I'm here to give you a report on the foundation. As president, one of my goals for the past year has been better communication with the commission, with library staff, with friends groups, and with outside groups, and so this is part of it. I recently attended the Harwood training with Commissioner Doyle, Anne and Ray Hawley, and it was a fascinating day spent turning outwards. That's the whole point of Harwood, to look outwards. And perhaps the most powerful aspect of the training for me was the focus on aspirations. They really focused on who do you want to be as a community and what do you want from your community, instead of saying what's wrong with the community or what's this problem that we're trying to solve, what do we want? And I think that's really important for us, because I think of the commission, I think of the library staff, I think of the friends groups of Lantern, of the foundation, and really I think all of us want a thriving, modern Sonoma County library system. And we may have different opinions on how to get there or what needs to be done, but I think we all want the same end goal. So I want to thank Commissioner Elkin, who I recently met for coffee, and I want to thank Commissioner Hauser for coming to our meetings as our new liaison. I really appreciate that you guys are taking the time, and I'm happy to meet with anybody to talk about the library at any time. So if anybody else would like to meet, or if you have a connection with a donor or anything else, me or one of the other foundation members would be happy to meet with you. In recent news, if you saw the recent December library newsletter, then you saw that the sensitive topics collection for teens is now available at 6 branches. This collection has 35 different titles covering sensitive topics for teens, and it can be checked out through the honor system, so teens don't have to go to the desk with something that they may not want to share with people. The foundation was happy to support this project through our staff innovation grant, and happy to support those libraries, including Central Santa Rosa, Northwest, Rincon Valley, Healdsburg, Rohnert Park, Cotati, and Windsor. At our latest meeting, we funded another staff innovation grant, the Great Stories Club Juvenile Hall. The American Libraries Association Great Stories Club is a thematic reading and discussion program that engages teens who are facing difficult challenges through literature-based library outreach programs. This particular program is an outreach of that, or an extension of that. It's Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation, and it features books that explore questions of race, equity, identity, and history, and supports racial healing sessions. This program is currently running at Amorosa Academy already, and foundation funding will allow a mirror program to run at Juvenile Hall, which we're really excited about. I received a lovely thank you note from librarian Kate Nicholson Willard at the Rohnert Park Cotati branch regarding the foundation, another staff integration grant for the Every Child Ready to Write program. Kate set up 10 stations to help children increase fine motor development and learn pre-writing skills. This includes things like oversized ABC soft floor puzzles, wooden ABC phonic puzzles, and individual whiteboards. And she has extended this program for the month of November by putting out supplies for youth to make their own picture book. And she'll continue to put out rotating writing activities in the children's room moving forward. On November 12th, the library began loaning out Chrome kits at every branch. You probably saw it if you're on social media, tons of posts about that. This was very exciting news for the foundation. We donated $50,000 in the beginning of this calendar year towards digital literacy, which was used to purchase 150 Chromebooks. We're great believers in the importance of the internet and digital skills in building equity in our communities, and so we're happy to see that people can check those Chromebooks out. I believe 2 meetings ago, the commission discussed the survey regarding the Library of Things. That survey is still available. Hopefully you've all taken it. I personally am campaigning for different cake pans to be available for checkout at the libraries, because that would benefit me personally. But one participant of that survey will receive a gift card paid for by the foundation. The foundation has donated $25,000 towards the Library of Things and is excited to see what kind of objects will be made available to patrons. After months of work, we have a new mission statement. I'm sure everybody who has gone through any kind of group retreat can understand the long experience that we've had, but we're happy to say that our new mission statement is the Sonoma County Public Library Foundation provides funding to ensure equitable access to Sonoma County library services. We are looking for new board members, so if you have colleagues or friends that care about the library, we would love to have them on board. The foundation is in a time of transition right now, similar to the library itself, and we're evaluating where we can be most helpful to the library and how we can leverage our assistance to provide long-term economic sustainability for the system. One way we hope to do that is through grants as a 501c3 organization. Some grants we're available for that the library can't apply to on its own, and so we look forward to working with the library to act as a partnering organization for grants that have to go through a nonprofit. And hopefully the next time I come to talk to you, we can discuss some successes in that area. Thank you.
Yeah. Stephen. Thank you, and thank you very much for your update. It sounds like from the notes from Commissioner Hausner that your last meeting also addressed capital campaign, that it seemed to be a discussion about moving away from grants to actually working on a capital campaign in conjunction with the library's needs. Can you be a little bit more specific about where you're going in that direction?
Absolutely. We have discussed our staff innovation grants, which are smaller grants. They're about $2,500, and they're open to all library staff. And we've discussed, are those really needed right now, or can the library afford all of those types of programs already, where maybe our staff innovation grants aren't needed at this moment? And so we've considered putting the program on pause. We don't have an official decision on that. The grants that I was talking about at the end were more grants through the ALA or other organizations that we could partner with the library and get funding, just as a way to leverage more funding and much bigger grants. You know, Wells Fargo has large grants, things like that. We have also talked about capital funding. We are all supporters of the Roseland Library, and we would love to be a bigger part of capital funding. We're talking about our capacity right now and how we can do that.
Okay, Karen.
Thank you for meeting with us. At the beginning, you spoke about aspirations. And I'm just wondering, looking across the landscape of other public library foundations in the country, can you mention 2 or 3 that you would consider would model the type of aspiration you're looking at?
Absolutely. I think the San Diego Public Library Foundation is doing a fantastic job at helping the San Diego Library move into the modern era with fine-free, just like our library system, which is amazing, but other programs as well. They have a very large endowment, which is something I'm personally interested in to sustain the long-term future of our library. And there's other library systems as well, King County and Washington, things like that. There's a lot of really incredible work being done by foundations, and we're learning. Our foundation has historically raised about $100,000 a year, and we've given that to the library. That doesn't mean we can't expand, but historically that's where we've been at.
So I just want to expand on that a little, continuing the question. So do you consider $100,000 a year adequate for a public library foundation to raise?
I think it's better than zero. Of course, we want to raise more money, and we understand that you would like more money. I think we're all on board. More money is good.
Okay, Jason? I'm working up the line, Barbara.
Yeah, I've been away for about a month or so. What about that new position that's going to be liaison? Okay, so I assume they're going to be able to answer some of these questions too, right? Fund development manager. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine these questions can also get directed at that position as well.
Please use your microphone.
I would imagine these questions could also get directed at her as well. Similar questions. I don't know if this is the exact forum for that.
I'm hoping that these questions will be answered in creating a strategic plan that will include the foundation and all the people that are involved in capital development. Barbara?
Yes, thank you for the update, Sarah. One thing I think we're all feeling good about is the clarification that the mobile bookmobile has been disconnected in all the different ways that it needed to be disconnected, so that's no longer kind of a blurry issue. I'm wondering, though, I thought I couldn't hear all of your presentation, but that you have lost some board members, is that true? And I'm wondering if, in the course of recruiting new ones, if you've kind of refocused to, I think, to address some of the other questions here, like folks who might be interested in larger capital campaign abilities, connections, so forth.
Absolutely, and that is what we are actively looking for. Absolutely, and that is what we are actively looking for right now. People who either can connect us or, you know, have experience in that kind of funding.
David?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I assume you heard the presentation from Lantern. We're talking about a request for funding of $25 million for a needed upgrade to one of our facilities. So that's, what, 100 times what you've been producing annually or more? So I really hope that, so does Barbara, that the foundation can look at really expanding its role. The small grants are great. We got serious multi-million-dollar needs here.
Okay, Tom?
I want to respond to that. I don't think that the Library Commission should be looking to the foundation as a sole source of money. We should be looking to the cities that have traditionally done this. What we want to do is help the cities that are having financial problems right now, and we think reaching out to the private community is a good way to make that happen. So and it's going to be a long process. It's a learning process where the foundation and the library is just really getting started in this major capital campaign concept. And so be patient.
Thank you.
Okay, any other? Oh, Ann?
So I just wanted to clarify for Commissioner Merrick, Siri, our fund development manager, she's not going to be going out directly soliciting money because as a library employee, she can't do that. Her role is to work with the foundation and with others to help them do the capital campaign and bring in the funds that are necessary.
Okay, anybody else? All righty. Thank you, Sarah, very much. It was nice seeing you again. Okay, are there any other public appearances? I know she kind of lobbed over into the presentation by the foundation, library advisory boards, et cetera, but okay. Any other public presentations? Okay. Do that, and I'm assuming we don't have any labs or friends of the libraries here to make any presentations. Okay. Thank you again, Sarah. Moving on to the library reports, the director's report.
Okay. So my report is in the packet, and I would like to echo what Sarah said about the Harwood training in Sacramento. It was a great opportunity to learn how to think outwardly and use that as a basis for the beginnings of our strategic planning process. And now we've got all of our retreats scheduled. The OMT retreat will be this coming Friday, and then we have a branch managers retreat later in the month and the commission retreat in early January. And after that, we'll be ready to get this whole thing rolling, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting process of working with our staff, with our commission, with our JPA partners, and hearing from the communities about what their needs and aspirations are. And otherwise, if you've not yet had an opportunity to read all the little details in your packet, I do urge you to read the public services reports and the support services reports, because our staff have done some pretty amazing work in the past month. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. On the sensitive topics for teens, maybe, Jamie, I think this is in your bailiwick. I have a couple questions you can help me with here. I'm absolutely delighted at this new program, which apparently started just today, if we can believe the report. And thanks to Allison Palmer of Healdsburg for proposing the idea. Now, how is this supposed to work? It appears that this is one area where we do not really object to the collection shrinking, because people may want to keep these books. So how are you going to keep track of how this works as an ongoing pilot project?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
No.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay, you really have to be on top. We have asked the pilot branches to track usage daily on a spreadsheet and note the number of titles that are on the shelf, basically, at the end of each day. So that's one way we're planning to see how many of the materials are being taken. We aren't necessarily going to know how many are being taken and returned. We're just taking a snapshot each day, how many are on the shelf.
When does the pilot end?
I think we're going to give it 6 months and then assess and decide how it's going, if we want to expand it, if we want to not expand it.
Yeah, well, I personally would appreciate a report each quarter just to see how it's going. Well, I don't know how Ann would feel about that, but this is a great program. I hope it's well used.
Okay, I can update you quarterly in my monthly report.
And the other question is one to Lana. I don't know how you're planning to deal with the report on the Roseland branch update, whether now or under the Roseland Coalition or under the contract with the architect, but I'd love an update with more benchmarks, and I understand that things went well at the November 21st meeting with the city staff.
I can be available for questions when we get to that item later on the agenda.
Which one?
Yeah, exactly.
The Roseland, the approval of the architect contract for Roseland.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments about the staff reports or director's report? Okay. Then we'll move on to the monthly financial report.
Good evening, Commissioners. In the packet, you hopefully have seen the monthly financial report. I'll just go ahead and skim over what is in your packet. Basically, the general fund cash balance as of October 31st decreased to $3.8 million from the September 30th, 2019 balance of $6 million. Sales tax fund cash balance as of October 31st increased to $10.2 million from the September 30th balance of $9.37 million. Fiscal year to date revenue and expenditures. We still are in a position, as usual, that shows an excess of expenditures over revenues in the amount of $8.1 million through October 31st, 2019. Total revenues and expenditures for the library for the month ended October were $1.46 million and $1.75 million, respectively. The fund balance, the library's net fund balance as of October 31st decreased to $19.1 million in October from the September 30th balance of $19.4 million. October 31st, 2019 net fund balance contained no restricted funds. I believe this was a question that was posed by the Commission to see, to break out the fund balance between restricted and unrestricted funds. So this fund balance as of October 31st had no restricted funds in it. Purchasing, here's the standard report that we do each month for the expenditures over $25,000 by vendor. And finally, the legal fees for invoices for legal services paid in, excuse that, should say October. It's October 2019. We're a total of $24,665. Any particular questions on any of the numbers?
Oh, excuse me. Andy?
I had a question about the net fund balance.
Yes.
It seems to me, if I remember what I asked you at the Finance Committee meeting, that the change in the net fund balance should equal the difference between revenues and expenditures for the month. Is that correct?
And yes, normally yes.
In this case, it doesn't. It's off by about $18,000. What would account for that?
I am uncertain. I certainly can take a look and get back to you with that answer. Was uncertain or did not realize that I was off by about 18,000. So,
okay. And may I ask one other question too? The retiree health insurance.
Yes.
Well, this will come up again later when we look at the general fund expenses, but how is that paid over the course of the year?
Excuse me. It is paid each month approximately $40,000 to $50,000 in retiree medical benefits. Plus, I had handed out to you folks the payments to the OPEB trust account, the catch-up payments, so to speak, if I may call them that. As you can see, for 2018-19, we had additional, or in addition, expenditures to that account of $2.25 million. That was what was agreed to or proposed by the commission back in the fiscal year 18-19. There was the additional $1.5 million to go into the fund, to the OPEB trust fund for fiscal 2019-20. You'll see in about the fourth column over, that was made back in September. As part of the expenditures or the catch-up payments, if you will, it was proposed or agreed to by the commission that there would be an extra $750,000 put into that trust fund as well. That was funded for 2019-20 back in July, and for 2018-19, pick one of those three. It was your additional 750. So basically, the commission had agreed to or proposed that there be a $3 million over 2 fiscal years, plus $750,000 for each fiscal year for the next 10 years to catch up on the retiree benefits shortfall.
But the $84,775 has nothing to do with the catch-up, right? That's just the monthly expense?
Correct.
And so is that a typical number for the month? Is this normally around $1 million a year of current expenses?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait until we get to the later pages to ask my further questions.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara? Yeah, I don't think we need to use the word catch-up because we aren't behind. The additional amounts, it's additional amounts paid into the OPEB trust just to put us in a better fiscal situation, just FYI.
That works for me.
Right. Back to your to the report, I'm not familiar with the vendor name, the PNA Group. And that is some sort of a insurance brokerage that we're paying
That's where we're, yes.
the monthly
Current, if you will.
pay-as-you-go.
Pay-as-you-go, thank you,
They are
yes.
the ones that send us the invoice, okay. So then where it says invoice frequency, monthly and quarterly, that's a little confusing.
We pay monthly, and on the third month of each quarter, we have a catch-up payment to pay to them as well. Because the calculations are inexact each month, there's a true-up at the end of each quarter, and that's why I put quarterly in here as well. So it's a little higher than it normally is because it was payment for the end of Q1, our Q1 for 2019, 2020.
Okay, thank
but these are all current payments.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen?
So thank you for your report. And so with what you just said about the $3 million over the next 2 fiscal years plus $750,000 for the next 20 years, do you see any problems given your current assessment of us being able to honor that commitment?
I do not see a problem with that at this point. I think we can, cash flow we will be able to meet those obligations because the $3 million has already been paid in now. So the only additional each year is the $750,000.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Oh, Andy?
Were you going to present other pages in the document, or should we just ask you questions now? I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm kind of stuck on this one category. Bear with me for just a second, please. I want to pull this up again. So I'm over into the expenses of the general fund.
Yes.
And I'm looking at line 50807, which is retiree health insurance.
Correct.
Is that the same category as for the expense that to the P&A group?
I believe the payments are to the CERBT. It's the trust fund for the OPEB payments and the P&A. You've got both current and our additional payments in that one, what I call a general ledger number.
Okay.
You'll see, again, in the paper I handed out, the 2019-20 year-to-date column on the far right-hand side is the exact same number as the year-to-date figure for the actual inside the expenses of the general fund.
Right, I see that, and I guess I have a couple of questions because I see the October expense here, and on page 4 of the report is $39,192, but on page 1 of the report in the expenses above $25,000, it's $84,775.
Yes. Uncertain why there would be a difference, but I certainly can look and reconcile the two.
Oh, okay. And the other thing is I understand that so I'm going to go to page 4 again. I see that the fiscal year to date number is $2.55 million. And I understand that $1.5 million of that is the payment made in September and October. That makes sense. But that means that we've had an additional $1 million of expense in the first 4 months of the year, right?
Are we still on line 50807?
Yes.
Okay. So the actuals, yes, there's a difference between the 39,000 and the 80,000 that I had in the narrative. That much I understand. But the year-to-date figures is 2.552.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I understand that 1.5 million of that is the expense on this page that appears in column 4. The 1.5 million?
Yes.
But if we take that out, that's still over $1 million in expense in that category in the first 4 months, is it not?
But $750,000 of that was paid back in July of 2019.
Okay, so if we look at it that way, then you feel like on a monthly basis, except for the discrepancy between, then on a monthly basis, this seems consistent with what you would expect us
and
to
with
spend.
what we have budgeted, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure about that because it looks like we've got $370,000 remaining for the next 8 months.
And at $80,000 a month.
At $80,000 a month, that would be $640,000. We're going to be $300,000 short.
Correct, mathematically. I'm not sure how, I wasn't here at the budget process, but yes, mathematically I noticed the same thing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
If I could interject, the budget number does not include the $1.5 million extra payment that was not in the budget. It's coming out of the reserve fund.
Randall, if that's in fact true, then we're going to be on the other side.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
But given an average of $80,000 a month, which would be about $1 million a year, there'd be no justification for having a $2.9 million budget number. I think this is an area we're going to have to look in more detail at the Finance Committee.
What I will do is take a look at the budget building process for this fiscal year and see if I can dig out that particular line item and see how it was constructed.
If you could, I'd appreciate. I know you're coming in late to the game.
Oh, no problem.
But it's one of the bigger items in the budget, and especially given the obligations we have for future payments, it's one I think we all need to understand.
Tighten up a little bit and get to the right numbers.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I had a couple of minor questions, if I could, about other expenses. The first was line 51230, security services. Not a big number, but I noticed that we've used 95% of the budget. I'm just wondering what has happened that might have accounted for that.
Would be more than happy to take a look at that and report at the next Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then final question, and this might be for Vicki, but line 51901, telecommunication data lines, we've also used 2/3 of the budget in 1/3 of the year. I'm assuming that this is just increased demand for data services, and is this something that, well, I'll be quiet and let you tell me what it is.
What's that? Turn that off? Okay. No, it isn't. Okay, so we're in a transition year from standard AT&T services, and we receive the E-rate, but it hasn't kicked in, so it'll kick in later on in the year, not to worry about it. We really do, we apply for federal E-rate funds, and California Teleconnect Fund. Anyway, the bottom line is that those are federal funds that will kick in more towards the end of the fiscal year, so it'll all work itself out.
So I'm going to just paraphrase that despite the fact that it looks like we're going through those funds at a more rapid rate, you're not concerned about that being a trend that won't be reversed by this availability of federal funds to offset.
I am not at all concerned about it. And we have traditionally run over at this time of the year, and then it all reconciles. You know, it takes a while for it all to come in.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okie dokie. Thank you very much, Rich. Okay. Commissioner report, and I'll start as the chair. A lot of meetings were canceled and moved around this month, but somehow we made it through. It was dealing with the aftermath of the fires and the stress, and I just want to thank the staff for the incredible work. I've been getting a lot of positive comments about what you did at different community centers or shelters or what have you, and in other libraries. And I did get one letter from one patron who couldn't understand why Sonoma Library was closed, and it turns out they were still in evacuation, and I wrote them and told them that they were still in evacuation, but that also that the Wi-Fi was working 24/7, which he did not know. And that was why he was there, so he could turn his computer on. But in addition to the evacuation issue, there also was some bouncing electricity. It wasn't really constant at that point. So the Wi-Fi might not have been working anyway, even if he had turned his computer on. But I wrote him a nice letter, and I got a very nice reply that he appreciated the information. He now understood what had happened to the library and why it remained closed. And he was really glad that I was willing to I gave him Vicky's phone number if he had any more technical questions that were way beyond me. So the other thing that I did as a chair is I attended the Foundation and Friends President's Council. And this does not necessarily relate to the commission directly, but they were talking about the insurance in relation to Friends. And that was a really interesting thing. The Friends are insured as long as they're working within the buildings and within their areas. And it was really interesting. So if anybody would like more information, get a hold of me and I'll tell you what I can and give you the reference people to go to. Okay, so I can't think of anything else. Anything else is in there, you can read it. Okay, so commissioner reports. You want to start, Stephen?
Sure. In addition to the regular meetings, I attended the regular Lantern Board meetings as well. Thanks.
My report is in the packet, and I have nothing else to add.
My report's in the packet, but I would like to add something. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I would like to give thanks to the staff for the great work that they do, and I'd like to give thanks to my colleagues on the commission. You are a very dedicated and caring group, and I'm honored to have a chance to work with all of you. Thank you.
My report is in the packet. I would also like to thank, I've gotten a couple of notes, condolence notes. My father died a couple of weeks ago, and very sad. He was 94, though. He had a fabulous life. And so I want to thank everybody who has said kind words. I also wanted to echo Ann's comments about the Harwood group. I've been kind of following along the Harwood program for a number of years at the national level in terms of the American Library Association and the Public Library Association. And every time I've sat in a meeting presented by the Harwood group, which the major thrust is to really kind of lean out, if you will, lean out into the community, think about the resources that we have, use the resources, help through collaborations, find a way to really kind of build services from the, from center, things like that, and to think big, of course. And in none of those meetings did I hear the leaders or the folks around the table talk about the Friends of the Library or their library foundations, or in fact their commission. Which I think is an interesting thing. I went and of course learned a lot, but I also think that one of the things that that we can do as a library is listen to the people who have been very dedicated in terms of service for the library, and that could be friends, that could be the people who give to the friends, that could be the people who give to the foundation, or the people who read about library stories in the newspaper and want to vote for the library next time around. But what's interesting, I think, about the Sonoma Public Library is that because we have gone through a long period of have not, when you don't have a lot, you tend to work with the community more, I think, because we have to make things work. And we have the luxury of having more money, and I think that we need to remember the people that we have worked with in the communities and make sure that we have all the conversations so that everybody knows what everybody is doing. I think that it's always a surprise if you find out that a section of your friends group is doing something that you didn't know about. And did they not tell you because they forgot, because they don't want you involved, because there are all kinds of things that we can think of. And we have terrific opportunity in the next few years. We have a little bit of money, and we have a lot of plans, and we have a lot of dreams, and I think we need to make sure that we talk to the people who have been supporting the library over the years when there wasn't any money, and listen to them. And just as we move forward, just make sure that we listen. Maybe that was not part of my report, but I clearly was inspired to to give a speech. Sorry about that. But the Harwood, as you can see, the Harwood session was inspiring, and I think that fundraising is an art. And Harwood didn't talk about fundraising at all. But as a fundraiser by background, that's exactly where I go. And we're going to have to be very creative about that. And I think that we could use all the tools that we can get, whether it's Harwood, whether it's foundations, whether it's friends, whether it's people who use the library every day and they've got money in their bank accounts, and all they have to do is be asked about making a donation to the library. So anyway, I'm done now.
Thank you, Deborah. Karen?
My report is in the packet. I will mention that if you haven't looked at it, please feel free to follow the Google link to the report I did on the Designing Libraries Conference in October. Although it was for academic libraries, there was much that was applicable and interesting to learn from. And I'm not going to, there's no quiz at the end. You don't have to read the whole thing, but even just skimming parts of it could be helpful.
Paul?
At the last Petaluma Lab, we did discuss seeing if we can get some more surplus money for Measure Y, and I'm pleased to see in the packet that about $600,000 has been added, and all the hardworking people in the lab and the Petaluma staff will appreciate that. Thank you. Attended the advocacy meeting on November 12th. And November 15th, Director Hammond, Commissioner Hauser, and myself met to discuss ways to build a capital campaign. And I think that's really important, and it's a long time coming, and I think we need to move forward on that, so more to come. I just wanted to say, too, for the Kincaid fire, I went over to the Petaluma Library. As you know, the fairgrounds in Petaluma was one of the staging areas for people escaping the fire. And I was just amazed by the staff and the activities. They had movies for kids and story time and a lot of extra stations so people could recharge their cell phones and computers. And of course, the internet was on, yay! And it was really great to see. And I tried to volunteer more, but there's so many other librarians for other branches that, you know, everything was taken care of. But I just wanted to, again, and as everybody else has said, show my appreciation of library staff and everybody that kicked in. I think that really meant a lot to the community. And again, it just proves what I always say when I talk about the library. It's the soul of the community. And that I couldn't think of a better example of how everybody really stood up and went the extra mile to help everybody. So thank you, everybody.
No report.
Just getting back, a little sabbatical there, and happy holidays.
Yes, my report was inadvertently left out of the packet, so I would direct your attention to your own personal copy that you, I think, received tonight. I have redoubled my efforts to try to attend as many programs and events as I possibly can in my outreach efforts, and I would applaud our staff at the Roanoke Park Library who did a quick turnaround instant Halloween fun event. I think that happened at some of the other libraries too, but I went down there and that was a lot of fun. I do want to say in public that I attended the memorial service for Annalise Eggert, and Annalise was a long-term board member for the Friends of the Library. She was an awesome human being. I wrote up a blurb about her here, and I hope everybody reads it, but she was known in swimming circles as an amazing coach and record keeper, and she even was a coach at the Atlanta Olympics and was highly thought of nationally. So anyway, she was a remarkable woman, and I want to thank her and let her family know how much we appreciated all of her years of work for the Friends of the Library. I also attended several kind of big deal things. Mike Thompson's Harvest Party. I ran into Terry Price there, who was our consultant for the Measure Y campaign, and he volunteered to help us going forward on a consulting free kind of help you out kind of situation. I attended the big Los 10th year anniversary event, and just a couple of programs were just particularly excellent. The Master Basket Weaver at the library was so good. He was just great. I hope you can all see him if he comes back. And a great author event, Lynn Downey down at Central, talking about Arequipa. So anyway, there's always something going on with libraries, and it's a great joy to be able to support and attend these programs. Thank you.
David?
My report's in the packet.
Okay, my report's in the packet as well, but I would like to highlight something that I'm rather happy about. The Cloverdale Lab has taken up an issue related to the library, and that's getting in and out of it safely. I don't know how many of you have driven in and out of that driveway, but on the left-hand side, north side of town, there's a big olive tree that's cut to a bush and is very low to the ground. And then there are some big trucks that park right there. So you have to be at least halfway into the road before you can even see. And they attended the Public Works meeting that occurred just before Thanksgiving, and they have begun to work to get the tree removed. And even better, they came up with the idea of creating a bus stop there. There is a bus stop on the other side of the street, but I've seen a couple of people almost get hit crossing that street, and in fact, I believe somebody was hit. And they had just gotten off the bus. In any case, they're working very hard to make it, for the townspeople, make the library more accessible, because Kings Valley, the shuttle bus goes in there. It goes up to two other senior living places. The south end of the town, it works the south end of the town where there's a couple of affordable living areas. So I'm kind of happy that they actually have found something to do, and they're being very productive, and I'm really proud of them. Anyway, so that's it. Okay, moving on to committee reports. I put a little something in the director's evaluation. I put the goals down that we had established for Anne, so you might be thinking about those in relation to what you've seen her do, because in January we are going to have a closed session to go around and discuss it and discuss what we see with Anne and how we feel about the work that she is doing. I won't give you my opinion, but I think it's very good. Anyway, okay, so moving on to the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee met just before the commission meeting, and so everything that happened was covered at the commission meeting, and there hasn't been a meeting since. There is a report in the packet, but I have nothing to add.
All righty, thank you, Randall. Advocacy?
Before we leave the Finance Committee, my name is actually Deborah, Doyle in the Finance Committee report. It's not a big deal, but just to let you know. In terms of advocacy, the report is in the packet. Thanks.
Okay, Tom, Foundation?
The report is in the packet.
All righty, Measure Y oversight. Randall?
The Measure Y Oversight Committee is meeting this Thursday at 2 o'clock in the central boardroom.
All righty, thank you. Roseland Coalition liaisons?
Yes, we have not actually met in a while. My understanding is that we're going to set a date to meet once we get more reports on the outstanding issues in reference to our temporary location. And I'm looking forward to hearing an update so that we can hopefully get monthly written updates about where we are to resolve the issues with the temporary location. And then setting that date. In particular, the issues seem to be, one seems to be resolved around the parking lot issue, but there is still the sprinkler issue. And also, I'm looking forward to hearing about the ADA compliance in reference to the sidewalks. So, thanks.
All righty, thank you. SOPs, Karen.
And I just want to clarify, we're still going to have another a discussion about Roseland, right? That wasn't it. That was...
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
I'm asking. Okay, great. SOPs, my very brief report is included in my commissioner report, and I know we have an item on the agenda for tonight.
All righty. Bylaws review?
No activity this month.
Thank you. Commissioner orientation, that's coming in January. I believe it's January 11th, if my head is working right. So we will be meeting that day. And then the all-day lab committees, we canceled the meeting for December 7th because of the lack of participants. So we're going to reschedule it early in January, or we're going to talk about rescheduling in January, and it'll be sometime after that. Okay, lab appointments. I believe there's one for Guerneville. Deborah?
There is. I would like to move by resolution that the Sonoma County Library Commission appoint the following applicant to the term as listed: Terry Gwizdowski to an advisory position on the Guerneville Library Advisory Board for a term ending on June 30th, 2023. And I have to say that I'm delighted to do this and volunteered to do this because I've known Terry for a long time. She worked for the San Francisco Public Library when I was on the Friends Board and on the Friends staff. And it looked like she single-handedly got the branch renovation campaign started. She was just phenomenal and worked in neighborhoods that the beginning of the campaign started in a neighborhood that had never had a library, and also in the poorest library in town. And she just did an incredible amount of work, and I was delighted. And she retired then as the final library was being built or being opened, and the Friends honored her for that. But I was delighted when I moved up here that she was already here, and so I'm delighted to welcome her onto the Guerneville Lab. So please.
I would like to second this wonderful addition to the Guerneville Lab.
All right, so Deborah moved and Barbara seconded. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? All righty. Unanimously accepted, passed, and appointed. Okay, consent calendar. Anybody have any thoughts or comments and want to?
I'd move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay.
Second.
Second, okay, so that was Tom Hauser made the motion, and Stephen Zolman seconded. So all those in favor of accepting the consent calendar?
Aye.
Anybody against? Opposed? All righty, unanimously accepted. So we're moving on to the schedule of the surplus spending, action items by motion. First one, Ann?
Okay, so on page 94, you'll see the original spreadsheet that we put together. We just reformatted it to make it easier to read. So these are the general categories. 91, all right. There's the original spreadsheet, and following that is a more detailed narrative describing each of the items and what we plan to do with those. So you can see all of the different expenditures that we propose, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Okay, Randall, we'll start with you.
First of all, I'm very concerned that the Roseland project is now kicking up $1.5 million. That for a temporary building that we will probably occupy it longer than we think, but still it's not a permanent. But $1.5 million is a serious amount of money, and I'm very concerned about that. The other thing is we're supposed to be doing a facilities plan real soon. A number of the items in the list have to do with facilities, both inside and outside, and I would suggest we defer all the facilities work until we have the plan in place and we have a clear goal on what we're going to improve and when and what we need to improve, so that it's like we're allocating money for projects that we may or may not really need. And since the facilities plan is coming up real soon now, I think we should defer all that. I mean, it's not like we're going to spend the money for something else. We'll still have the money. At a future date, the commission can vote to use that money for facilities once we have a facilities plan in place. Now, Petaluma's underway. I'm all for that. We're going to start planning Healdsburg. Okay. But the general stuff that's not very specific, I think we should defer until a later date, until the plan is complete.
Which of the items are you referring to as general, non-specific?
Well, branch refreshes we've got. I don't know, where did Guerneville and Central pop up on the refresh list?
They're under branch refreshes.
Okay, the ADA assessments, the parking lot, exterior paint, landscaping, building improvements, furniture replacement, and the new signage. Signage I'm less concerned about, though you could have a lot of wonderful programs for $300,000. But I just think we should wait on other facilities projects until we have the plan.
Okay, things like parking lot reseals and things like parking lot reseals and landscaping, those are not going to really be dependent on the facilities plan, because those are things that have to be done anyway. So I understand what you're saying. A lot of these, for example, the ADA assessment, that will be included as part of our facilities plan. Furniture replacement, those are things that we can use anyway, whether the building is improved or not. If you'd like to hold off on some of these others, we can certainly talk about that. But you know, we're partway through, almost halfway through the fiscal year, and these are the monies that we were hoping to spend this year. So whatever we can get done, I would encourage us to make those approvals so we can get moving on it.
Okay, Karen?
I was actually concerned in the other direction about Roseland, is I don't think $1.5 million is a lot of money. Well, okay, I should probably rephrase that compared to the, but it's for a building renovation, it's not. And I know we're having a conversation about Roseland later, but I'm concerned about things that are spelled out in the scope of work that could create more cost for the project. And I've wondered actually if we shouldn't have a contingency in here specific to Roseland so we can open the branch that we want to have rather than open the branch with the funding that we have. So that's my concern.
Okay. Barbara? Yeah, I had a number of concerns. The kind of big picture is that, you know, we have the surplus, and then we had kind of a meeting about it at the Finance Committee meeting, and then we had a change in CFOs, and then we had another meeting, and the format was changed. And then at our last Finance Committee meeting, which was exactly the same day as the commission meeting due to all the fires and the reorganization and stuff, none of us really felt comfortable going, yeah, okay, you know, this is fine, you know, give us some more detail. So then now we have the detail, and again, it's laid out a little bit differently, and I have some of these same questions, actually some of the things that Randall brought up. I'm concerned about what I feel is an extraordinary cost of Roseland tenant improvements. We went through so much effort to get $150,000 out of Santa Rosa, and some amount of effort, well, you know, that we felt very good about getting $250,000 from the County of Sonoma. Now we're talking about $1.5 million. Again, this is for building improvements, not for a building, but, you know, where's the landlord? why are we paying for, you know, all the ADA and so forth? I just feel it's an extraordinary amount of money to update somebody else's building. I also, in a relative sense, then see that we put aside relatively very small amounts for some of the other, you know, painting the facilities and the parking lot reseals and so forth. I think it's a valid argument. I believe that Commissioner Neff was talking about some of these things are probably part of leases. You know, as we know, we don't have the lease situation straightened out. But I was under the impression when we had a discussion a couple of times ago that there was, we wanted to kind of gussy up everybody and, you know, treat everybody, you know, with some amount of equity and make everybody look good. But I hadn't realized that this money we were putting aside for exterior paint was a partnership fund. So we're not going to paint, even though, you know, Petaluma is going to get a whole big more chunk for their refresh. Suddenly, again, as Commissioner Neff said, we didn't vote on who was going to be refreshed next. to me. It was Healdsburg, and now suddenly Guerneville is going to be refreshed, and then Central is something's going to happen, but I don't believe these are commission decisions. I don't believe that we've talked about these at commission level, you know, the order of things and what's going to happen to them. I mean, now we're up in, you know, $2 million for those. So then we put aside this kind of little pot of money to paint everybody else, and then, oh, guess what? We're not going to do that. We're just going to share that. So we're going to go to the other jurisdictions and make them, pony up something. So it doesn't seem like a kind of a, I don't know, it doesn't feel relatively right to me. I understand that, we have this money and we want to spend it this fiscal year. We don't have to spend everything this fiscal year. It's the holidays coming up, and I don't know how much of this we're going to get rolling in December. But I would like to have some further discussion, particularly about these sharing funds, with the jurisdictions. And it's a complicated process because we have, leases in place, then we have leases that are not in place, and we got people responsible for something, and, I realize it's very complicated, and we're dealing with a lot of money, and we're trying to get kind of flushed through the system, but I really would like to have a greater sense of kind of equity within the system, and I know you don't like the word equity, but something so everybody feels like they're getting, getting some. We're talking about spending, what about, is it $300,000 just for signs, for branding? I don't know. I just don't feel like we've had a chance to really talk this through it even at the Finance Committee meeting because, and nobody's fault, but just because of the fires and the rescheduling and the change in personnel and all that. I just don't feel comfortable, saying yes to this whole plan right now. Tom?
And we're talking about a facilities plan report. When might that appear?
We haven't actually started it yet.
So are we talking about next fiscal year?
It'd be next fiscal year, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Stephen?
Yes, thank you for all the issues that were raised by my fellow commissioners. And I, too, am concerned in the fact that the facilities plan, I don't know exactly who has input, but I'm assuming us commissioners would have input. And so if we are due to start that, then yes, I would agree. The fact that we do put a pause on some of this to make sure that we can honor our commitments and honor our fiduciary duty as the governing body, which is we've signed a contract for Roseland, we can't back out. So is there going to be money for that? Is there going to be money for all the rest of our libraries that need to be updated? So yes, I agree in the fact that I think we should put a pause on this until there's more discussion, more reporting from our staff to us about what their recommendations are as far as facility plan, and to have us also participate in the discussion about the revised facility plan.
Okay, I need to make a comment. David Cahill and I have been assigned, appointed to the Facilities Committee, and we will be meeting as soon as they're up and running. And I was understood that it'd probably be January before we got going on it, because I did ask that question.
When was that formed? I must have missed.
That was when we appointed all the committee members. One of them was to the ad hoc Facilities Committee.
Okay.
And it was David and I that were appointed to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that. And, well, since I'm already talking, I'm going to add that I have heard that Healdsburg and Guerneville would be up and coming as far as doing refreshes. So, and converting a building to public use, what the requirements for a public use building and business, very different. Very different. And I think that's what's happening with the improvements in that building with, that we've got for the Roseland Library. Anyway. Okay, Jason?
Yeah, I want to bring up a few points. If I remember right.
It's on.
It's on. If I remember right, when our former CFO was up front, when we have a surplus of funds, they need to be earmarked for a purpose. You can't just reserve the funds in a reserve fund balance. So it could be XYZ, I don't care what you call it. Earmark it for what you want. They need to be earmarked for something. So to earmark them for facilities upgrades, to me, is very pertinent, prescient, and within our jurisdiction, and I think that's the smartest play, since they do need to be earmarked. You can't just carry over a reserve fund balance as such. And then that being spoken, we're looking at this parochial. This is a system. It's based on need. So if one branch needs more care than another, so be it. This is a system and not a parochial system anymore. Similar, if you've been paying attention to the fire departments, Rankin Valley merged with Bennett Valley, along with Windsor. And we finally got that going and looking at it as a system-wide county system and not just a parochial system. So that old thinking needs to go by the wayside. And lastly, what else do I want to point out? I don't have a problem with Roseland. As I understand it, we're upgrading the sprinkler system. Yes, but it's a safety reason, probably that came by the way of City of Santa Rosa that we didn't expect. And any capital improvement project, you're going to have unexpected costs. We're undergoing one right now at my house. So welcome to capital improvements, folks. That's about it.
All righty. Andy? I'll get you in a minute, David.
I appreciate the discussion and the different perspectives. I wanted to weigh in on 2 points. One is Roseland. I understand Commissioner Neff's concern about the total budget dollars, but we've all, I think, seen this process evolve over the last year and year plus. I think that the staff and the commission have thoroughly investigated all of the limited real estate possibilities that were open to us. I feel like we've selected the one that is viable, and the costs seem reasonable given the extent of the work that has to be done. We heard from the Lantern folks that new construction would be over $1,000 a square foot. Later, we're going to be looking at the proposal from the architectural firm. They're estimating $370 a square foot for the renovation efforts. That seems higher than we would like, but understandable and reasonable, and this is an important priority. I think we all recognize that. So I don't feel like we have a choice but to say, yes, we're going to go ahead with this, because to not do that, we're going to be back to square one, and we're not going to be fulfilling our mission to a significantly underserved community. That's my first point. The second point is about the overall facilities plan and some of these expenses that have been allocated, or the request that they be allocated for partnership efforts with local communities. I think that is something that's worth discussing as a commission, but ultimately I think it's something that we're going to have to support. We're in a transition stage with regard to our leases. We have some leases that are in place, we have others that are not. We know that we need to move forward with a process of building relationships and trust with the local communities, and ultimately creating a more sustainable basis, including written and signed leases for all of our facilities. This seems like a reasonable investment in that direction. So although it's something we might want to discuss philosophically, I think in the context that we find ourselves, it makes sense. And so I'm inclined to support the staff's requests, and with the understanding that we can discuss it further. But from a budgeting perspective, as Commissioner Merrick was saying, this seems very reasonable to me, and I appreciate that the efforts that the staff has put together to come up with this narrative in a relatively short time as we requested. Thank you.
David?
Yeah, let's remember, we have a history in the past year or two of not spending all the budgeted amounts. We have consistently come in under budget. So I look at this as the ceilings on a variety of projects. I have no idea what Roseland will cost, but if we need $1.5 million, if we have budgeted it, it can be spent. We may only need $1.2 million. Ditto for all these other issues. These are almost all round numbers. They're plainly estimates, and we can't expect more than that. I'm willing to go with the staff and budget and pass the motion.
Barbara? Yeah, perhaps I was a little bit misunderstood here in a couple of things. One thing is in terms of the trust in the jurisdictions, which I completely second. That's very important to build trust in the jurisdictions. That was kind of my point. If we are upgrading to a significant extent many other jurisdictions' buildings, and some of the jurisdictions would have only a shared cost kind of thing. I'm not opposed to shared cost. It's better than having no help at all. A library that has a lease that says that jurisdiction is responsible for the total outside upkeep, they would get a better deal by having some cost-sharing funds. But my point is that they're very small amounts relative to the rather large amounts we're talking about the branch refreshes. And back to this point about, I think we know Petaluma was going to happen, and then we knew that Healdsburg was next in line, but I don't believe that the commission has decided, well, then Guerneville's next and then Central's next. We haven't had that discussion. They're suddenly appearing here, and then that's $2,163,000 that we haven't, up until this point, said, well, tell us more. Why's Guerneville next? I saw something some while back about how the county had that on their list of capital expenditure expectations or something. We were pursuing that, and then suddenly, apparently, we're not pursuing that, and we're going to pay for it. So, and to Commissioner Merrick's point about parochialism, I think, again, we have a dual responsibility. We have primary responsibility to the system as a whole. We're also representatives appointed by jurisdictions, and it's not parochial to me. It's just representative. We are representative of different jurisdictions. We want everybody to look good. We want the whole system to look good. We want, all the branches to be good. And so that, I'm just not sure that plays out through this particular plan. I'm not sure that we've had enough input into this particular plan. And again, the Roseland thing, I agree with what you're saying. We've walked this long path about Roseland. My comment about that was more, where's the landlord? I mean, why are we paying for all the tenant upgrades? We have to have sprinklers and all that kind of stuff. Why doesn't the landlord have any responsibility? Maybe they don't have to talk to us about it because it's too hard to find places to rent. I don't know, and I'm sure the staff has looked into this, but it's kind of shocking, shocking numbers, and I'd love to hear what Mr. Tacheva has to say.
Anybody else? Sure. Tom?
It would have been much better if we had done this 2 months ago. We'd all feel more comfortable. We could have had time to discuss it. Things happen. People have babies, okay? Some of us are getting older. Well, we had fires, we had catastrophes, we had this and that, and we're here and we need to deal with it. And I don't think there's anything here that I don't feel comfortable saying, let's try to go ahead with it this year, and let's try to plan better next year for the future. And based upon that, I'd like to move approval. Let me look at it. I move that the Sonoma County Library Commission approve the adjustment to the fiscal year 1920 budget and commit a portion of the sales tax fund balance for the attached scheduled document 1011.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, so we have Tom Hauser making the motion, and we have 2 seconds. Paul Heavenridge and Andy Elkin, both at the same time.
You're the turd.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose?
Oppose.
No. Wait a minute. There was a bang at the same time. Those who oppose?
No.
Barbara McKenzie, Karen Schneider, Randall Neff, Stephen Zolman. Oppose? So Andy Elkin, Deborah Doyle, thank you very much. Paul Heavenridge, Tom Hauser, Jason Merrick, David is a yes, David Cahill's a yes, and I'm a yes. So I believe it passes. Okay. And moving on to the reimbursement process. Karen, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
I'm sorry,
The reimbursement process, you want to take the lead on this?
And two.
I can hardly wait. Okay. So in the first, thank you to the SOP committee. It's been we've got more in the pipeline, and we recommend suggestions, and we will resume our meeting in January. So we have placed on the table a reimbursement standard operating procedure that is designed to help guide commission activity, save time to staff, make it easier on the commissioners, and ensure we're following procedures. You've had opportunities, actually, I think it's been in the packet twice now with limited conversation, so I would strongly encourage you to rush this to a quick conclusion and approve the motion.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, so who moved? I didn't get that one. Paul Heavenridge made a motion that we accept the process for reimbursement of expenses. Tom Hauser seconded it.
I have a question.
Deborah has a question.
I have a question. So I know this is probably a silly question, but if we pass it today, can those of us who did not get permission to go someplace, can we submit expenses?
Yes.
Thank you.
I will give you that permission. Yes, this will be retroactive for this year. So,
I think we ought to
please do it as soon as possible so it doesn't crowd up all at the end. Last year we had several commissioners who put things in right at the very end. It was difficult. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so it's unanimously passed and accepted.
May I say thanks for all the great work on this. It's wonderful and clear and beautifully documented, and appreciate all the work for the SOP committee on this.
Right, thank you, Barbara. Okay, now we're talking about moving our meetings to Roanoke Park, and I believe it will begin in January, is that correct? March.
We may take a little bit longer, so we have an opportunity to train the staff on the new systems.
Okay, so the motion says March? Oh. Okay. No, I missed it. All right. Okay, so any comments or thoughts, or Stephen?
Yes, I'm imagining that the thought behind this was to save money. And I think that at least financially, it seems like with the move, it'll save about $2,000 a year. I'm concerned about accessibility and the fact that the current recording that we have now has it so that people can actually read what we're saying for those that have challenges. So I'm concerned about that accessibility, and I'm also concerned about the physical accessibility. Being central in this county provides people with very low income to be able to find out a bus line to get to this place, which is central to the county, versus Roanoke Park, which is way further south, and I'm not sure about mass transit going down there. So I don't feel like there's a reason why we should move a centrally located government meeting to a more isolated part in the county to save $2,000, so I'm voting against.
Okay. Vicki, do you want to answer the question on the technology?
I didn't hear a technical question. I heard a practical question about accessibility, and and that part is a two-part question. I think there's the physical accessibility issue that he's describing, and I think secondly, closed captioning will be a part of this, just as it is. Just as it is now. I think what we're talking about here are some valid concerns, but I believe in large, it's the best effort by our staff and for you all to have some flexibility, because it's not all about money. You know, we have to have the commission meetings here, and they have to be at 6 o'clock, and they have to be the first Monday of every month, and you don't have that kind of flexibility. And so I would just encourage you to think about some of those things. Like if you wanted to have a 3 o'clock in the afternoon meeting, if you had that scheduled, you can do that. And you have the flexibility. With respect to the accessibility, we will have the software that provides indexing, so you can jump to a place in the video where there is this particular discussion and so forth. So the indexing will be there. It's all part of the software.
So indexing will be there and closed caption will be an option as well.
And archiving of all of our previous commission meetings will be rolled into this. I talked last month on the 18th when you met. The city of Sonoma Valley is using this software. It's called iCompass. The city of St. Helena is using this. There are a number of other, the city of Calistoga is also using this software, city of Fresno. So it's a known commodity.
So yes, and I agree with you about the bus line connections, but the bus line connections, I mean, nobody from Cloverdale can come, nobody from Healdsburg can come at night to our meetings here, because the buses don't go back at a time when the meeting would be over. So yeah, the connections getting here, but anyway, either place there are issues. Andy?
I'd like to respond to some of the concerns that Commissioner Zollman raised, and it was not my impression that we were doing this as a cost-saving measure. I realize you were not able to attend the commission meeting last month, but I will say that from firsthand experience, it was a vastly superior meeting because, first of all, we could hear each other, and second of all, we could see each other. Both of which I find to be extremely difficult in this room. In terms of accessibility, I think there's two different aspects to that. One is transportation, but the other is the relatively inaccessible space that we have here for anybody who has a physical disability of any kind, which I think is actually easier to navigate at headquarters. I just found it to be a much more enjoyable and understandable meeting. And I think that the flexibility that we would have to, for example, have a meeting earlier than 6 o'clock might be a way to mitigate the limited transportation for people coming from farther locations, whereas here we don't have that kind of flexibility. So I appreciate the concerns that you've raised, but would encourage you to consider the benefits of this approach, which I think will be better for us. Thank you.
Hey, Paul?
I wasn't at the last meeting, and you probably discussed this, but right now we have a live broadcast, so people that can't make it here can see, and it'll continue there at the same.
Correct, it will. We live streamed the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to jump on the library's YouTube channel, you can watch and listen.
Yeah.
And it was live while we were recording it.
That's important. I also have the same concerns to make it ADA compliant, And that really helps for people that really physically can't get here anyway. And I know a lot of people do listen to it, believe it or not, because once in a while I'll get a text live right here saying, you said this, and what do you mean by that? You know, so I know somebody's listening, so that's good. Thank you.
Barbara? I appreciate and understand where Commissioner Zollman's coming from. This is a county-wide library system, as I was just reminded about when we had the budget discussions, which I agree with. And this is a much more central location than, you know, kind of a side road in Rohnert Park. And when I mentioned this before, I am the one who benefits the most, and yet I'm the one who put up the most objection when we were automatically going to move down there, because I see where you're coming from, and I agree with you. This is a much more central location. It was very nice sitting down there last time. I wasn't sure that we were all on camera, but Vicki encourages me to agree that the camera can be moved around. I don't, you know, kind of talking heads from the side is not really the same thing as seeing what people say, but you were telling me that the location of the cameras can be different. And, you know, so that was kind of one of it. It was a much more kind of a collaborative sense because we were sitting in a U and we were across from each other, and, you know, it was comfortable and it was warm, and, you know, like my feet are freezing right now and stuff. But I know what you're saying, and I don't think people are likely to come down there either. And so, you know, it's a consideration. My technical consideration was always about indexing, in which you've resolved by looking into the software. But a lingering question when you're talking about going on the YouTube channel, is that where we have to find these?
We are broadcasting these over the library's YouTube channel, that's right. And it's a private YouTube channel. It is open to the world, but it is identified as the library's YouTube station. And this software uses a number of live streaming. We could live stream on Facebook, live stream on YouTube. There are a number of venues where Vimeo, there are a number of live stream tools that can be used. The YouTube channel and the library's YouTube channel is the most appropriate place to broadcast this so that it ties right in to the library's website and so forth. Just point of information, this is being broadcast not only using Granicus, it is also broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and a number of other live stream venues. So this can be broadcast in up to 5 venues if we so choose.
If somebody wants to watch it though, they go on to
the library's website, and they'll click on the links that we have, we will put in place. And then if you want to see the video and you want to go to a particular motion, the software indexes the video for us. And then you can go to a particular, like the discussion we just heard you all have about the budget and the budget surplus. Well, you would just be able to jump into that just like you can now with the Granicus.
Right, but so if I want to watch it tonight, we're on tonight now, somebody wants to watch it tonight, they go on the website, follow the links. They want to see something that happened, and you know, what happened in the last month's meeting, they still go on the website, and they'll see something that looks like Granicus currently looks, which it shows current agendas coming up
for the last meeting that we did, for the last meeting, you just will have to go to the link on the website. The indexing is not there because we hadn't deployed the software yet, but it's, I mean, the agenda is up there. You can go in and watch the YouTube presentation of the last meeting.
Well, I meant conceptually, moving forward, if we do this,
yes,
moving forward, you'll go onto the website,
yes,
and you'll be able to see past meetings.
Yes,
indexed.
Yes, all of it.
Thank you.
David?
Yeah, I have had some concerns about the public experience. And I think Vicki has ameliorated those concerns. With regard to the public participation in our meetings, it is unusual for what I would call a member of the true public, not affiliated with the library, to be here. that is the reality of the situation. Maybe it's because we're so wonderful that they aren't upset. The seating is essentially equivalent here at headquarters, according to the staff report, in case we do have an unusually large number of folks. I know relocating is going to be personally slightly more of a burden for me because instead of coming a mile, I'll have to go 12 miles. But that's the breaks. I'm also was not aware that some of my colleagues are having trouble hearing and seeing the proceedings. Maybe it's just because of where I sit. But I think that that's essential, is that we have to be able to follow the discussion. So I'm willing to support this.
Deborah?
Just quickly, we've had this conversation now for several meetings, but I don't think we've mentioned that this is probably going to be easier for the staff, because most of the staff is down in the Rohnert Park office, and it's probably easier to switch to the conference room than it is to jump in the cars and come up here through rush hour traffic. So I think for me, it's very difficult to hear in this room, and it's very difficult to get down those stairs. I think I have a balance problem, and so I just have a mental picture of diving down the stairs. So it's easier for me to go to Rohnert Park, frankly.
Okay. Did you have a comment, Karen?
I think I probably live closer than anybody else to my home from here. And I know people think, oh, well, I work close to Rohnert Park. Yeah, but I'm like half a mile from here. And yet I would much rather be at the headquarters. The experience was so excellent. I really loved seeing the people who did attend. And as David says, reality is it takes a pretty hardcore library commission groupie to come to these meetings. We appreciate them. I love the fact that we would be encouraging more people to not use cars to watch us, to save the carbon footprint and see us from home if they want to. And I think it's a real win. And I think we should offer it to the city council for their own meetings, because it's such a much more pleasant experience. And physically, I also have a very hard time with those stairs.
Any other comments? Okay, I have a couple. First of all, it was much easier down there. Here, a lot of times when people talk, it just sounds like everything's strung together. Would it be possible the agenda is posted, would it be possible to put a link up, and I don't even know if this is legal or what have you, I'm asking, to put a link up so the public, if they couldn't make it, could ask questions, and then somehow we can incorporate it in? I mean, that's a thought, and I don't know, again, legalities of any of that, but.
I think honestly, just about anything is possible. I mean, we would probably have to put the chat box up on the website and have someone monitoring that. But okay. I think that it's not, I think it's possible. Okay. And I'm not certain that the software has that built into it, but I'll ask some more questions about it. I'm just really pleased with this software is much upgraded and less expensive than Granicus is. It's just really a lot more usable, I guess is the way I would put it.
Yeah, my experience down there was very, very positive. And one of the most positive things is I'm sitting here with 4 layers on. One is a sweatshirt, one is a thermal shirt, and I'm freezing. So I don't think I will experience that down at headquarters.
All right, I'm going to make the motion then. That just sold me right there, warmer. Okay, I'm going to make the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Deborah seconds, and Paul Heavenridge made the motion.
Do you want me to read the motion?
Oh, read the motion, yes.
I move that the Sonoma County Library approve movement of the commission meetings to Rohnert Park headquarters beginning March 2020.
All righty. So Paul made the motion, and Deborah seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. So, and abstaining? Tom Hauser abstained, Randall Neff and Stephen Zolman opposed, and Andy, Deborah, Karen, Paul, Jason, Barbara, David, and myself all supported it. So the motion passed. So beginning with March 2020, we will be meeting in Rohnert Park. Okay. So with that, we're to the Architect Professional Services Agreement Addendum, and David is there.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Dave Tesheva, Facilities Manager. We're asking you to approve this motion, to approve this amendment to the PSA, which is a professional service agreement we already have with Anderson Brule Architects, to authorize Ann Hammond, our director, to execute this agreement on behalf of the Commission. Secondly, we'd like you to approve the bid proposal included with this board item, plus any revisions as approved by the Library General Counsel, and authorize Ann Hammond, Director, to execute such contracts on behalf of the Commission with contractor with respect to the Roseland TI project and the parameters of the professional services agreement and addendum. Thirdly, authorize Ann Hammond, the Director, to execute change orders with respect to the professional services agreement in the amounts not to exceed 5% of the total cost of the respective project.
Okay, questions? Stephen?
Yes, I'm approaching this in the fact that we don't really have any choice but to pass this because we're contractually obligated for 6 years for this facility. The questions I have are what was known, when it was known, and how much research was put into this location before we actually signed the contract. Because I understand that the sprinklers are now an issue, but we had access to half of the building, like right when we signed the lease. So could we not have done anything on behalf of the library to figure out if there were sprinklers before we actually signed the lease? And what was brought up tonight with Commissioner McKenzie, also the fact that about this ADA compliance with the sidewalks, I remember specifically sitting here at the commission meeting addressing both of you, asking, along with a few other commissioners, about whether there was any type of impediment into moving into this location. And when we were reassured at that time that there were not. Now again, we're hearing about sprinklers and we're hearing about ADA sidewalk. And at some point there was questions about whether they had enough parking. So my question is, what was done internally before it was made a recommendation to us that everything was fine with this building, we wouldn't go above budget, and go ahead and sign the lease?
Well, that's a mouthful. So I'll begin with, we did evaluate that building to the best of our ability to have known ADA issues, as it was a functional operating business at the time before we went into lease negotiations. What was unknown by us at that time is that new ordinances have been passed with the city of Santa Rosa for square footage for buildings and public buildings, specifically when it comes to sprinklers systems and fire suppression codes. Also, what was unknown at that time was that the slope of the parking lot was out by 1/4 inch per every 3 feet to the front of the building. There's no real way to do that unless you hire a surveyor to do so or bring in professional services like we have after we've signed. Now, should we have had professional services prior to doing that? I think so. But we were never under the the direction from this commission to seek out a long-term solution for a short-term problem. But when we presented a long-term solution, you all told us to proceed, so we did.
Okay, any other, Tom?
I think we got in a situation we weren't capable of understanding. I can't blame staff for that because we don't have staff that's engineers and all those kinds of things. And neither am I. And I think we have to go ahead with this. You know, it's like you have a baby. It just happens.
Karen?
I'm still absorbing the baby thing, but so first, thank you for opening up an important conversation. I want to first echo Commissioner Doyle's comments that the library is operating from a different framework than we did during our Dust Bowl times. And I recommend that as we're doing new things, they're different things, we may not understand always what we need to do. And first of all, and I would even see this as part of the motion, I recommend that as part of our due diligence as commissioners, we ensure that major initiatives, such as new branches, are followed by after-action reports so we can learn from what went right and what could have been done better. So as a commissioner, I admit to being startled that cost estimates and a timeline, both fairly firm as presented, were provided before we knew that the Roseland site needed fire suppression, restrooms, and accessibility modifications. These are not terribly subtle problems. At least with the library projects I've worked on, they always begin with a very thorough systems review before you even begin to look at what the cost and timeline will be. And reviewing the architect's scope of work, that just got me more concerned. I see that on page 13, the design phase includes the following: determination if existing HVAC system is adequate for the project, determination if existing electrical system is adequate for the project. We've already seen, and I'm not opposed to this facility. I think I'm very excited about the project. I'm very excited about, and I think given the very limited real estate options in Santa Rosa, we take what we have and we work with it. I'm just concerned that we didn't know what we didn't know going into it, made a lot of cost estimates and timeline estimates, and that we're going to have more, it's going to take longer and be more expensive than we realized. We made a few rookie errors here. And this is why I voted no on the budget proposal. I liked almost everything in it, but I would have liked some funds earmarked as contingency for Roseland, because I don't think $1.5 million is a lot of money when it comes to a big project like this. I just spent over $700,000 on basically some furniture and chairs and a little bit of data pulling and some carpet. People have to understand what things cost. So that's my comment on this. I really think we need a contingency set aside for HVAC, electricity, and other issues. And I also am hoping that we have a very thorough review of the building before we make any more predictions about when it will be open and how much what the final cost will be. Thank you.
If I may address the contingency part, that is built into that estimate. ABA hasn't shared like the open estimate worksheet, but there was like 80,000 in contingency specifically for HVAC, and the total 1.5 million that was included, plus a construction contingency as well, which is roughly 30%, and then their own contingency. And in fact, they had so many contingencies in there that me and Lana were kind of questioning that. And so what that is that's built in so that, like David Cahill mentioned earlier this evening, that it may cost less than the 1.5, but the 1.5 was a not to exceed amount, is the way we were looking at that. Now this may change, like you're saying, once we get professional cost estimates in there. These were just estimates based on this firm's professionals, which are pretty good. And they're also, so all that stuff is built in, the contingencies.
Okay, David?
I have some questions for Lana about the city of Santa Rosa. I know you had what you felt was a productive meeting on the 21st of last month. Where are we now on benchmarks and timelines and milestones? Well, let's just start with that. Where are we with that? Can't hear you.
Lana Adlawan, I first want to just thank the commission for the thoughtful discussion. It's not an easy discussion. It's one we've been having for over a year since I've been at the library system and beyond, since the Roseland Village project started. But I do appreciate the discussion, and I think it's important and agree with many of the comments. In terms of an update in terms of our meeting with the city of Santa Rosa, which was a really great meeting, I think that the work that we've done to establish better partnerships with the city of Santa Rosa the last year have really benefited us in many ways in terms of advocacy for Roseland and beyond, but we do seem to have stable partnerships with the city at this time. In our meeting, they were very supportive of anything needed to continue to move this project along. We provided some information in terms of we needed to look at the number of parking spaces for the planning department. That seems to have gone fine. We're still working with the water department to support the fire suppression system. We need to continue to explore those issues before we can come back with the timeline for the commission. And we will be wary of that timeline going forward. With the holidays, we have not had a chance to connect with Anderson Brule since our meeting with the architects. So we have not gotten an updated timeline from them or any further information, which is why we don't have an update for you specifically on that at this meeting.
Would it be possible to provide us a timeline when you get it rather than wait for the commission packet in January?
I would be wary of sending out that information before the January meeting. We need to have the appropriate meetings with our architect and really fully explore the issues that we're having, and those issues may not be resolved before the January 2nd meeting.
Well, we're sitting here without any information. This is not good. We're told, well, we're working on it. But we've known the wheels began to come off the buggy in mid-October, and here it is early December, and we still don't know if March to May is reasonable or if the city is willing to expedite its procedures so that maybe we might be able to open in February.
The city has expressed its support to expedite our procedures. I can't say for certain that that will happen as we go along in the process, but like I mentioned, they are very supportive of our process and want this branch open as quickly as possible, like the public and the library does. In terms of an updated timeline, the information that you reported during the last commission meeting was correct. That still is a preliminary estimate provided by Anderson Brule. We will not have a revised estimate until we have those conversations with them.
Okay, Jason?
I mean, I'm just trying to cut this short. So if we approved earlier the revised budget of 1.5 million, correct? This is only authorizing our staff and our director to go up to that amount, correct? So I don't see the hesitation in this item when we approve the prior item. So I'd like to make a motion to approve, let's see, item 10.4, tenant improvement project, New Roseland, recommended actions 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
All righty, who seconded it? Okay. Okay, I needed to get that in my head. It's been motioned by Jason and seconded by Stephen. So Barbara would still like more discussion, though.
Well, I haven't quite heard yet. I've brought up the landlord's responsibility a couple of times. I haven't actually asked you guys. But just to clarify, we signed a lease before these big expenses became apparent. Is that correct? And there's no point in going back and talking to the landlord that they are, I don't know who the landlord is, I mean, at this point, that they would have some responsibility for making this, ADA accessible or having sprinklers or, that's not a landlord's responsibility at all.
So I can't remember which commission meeting it was, but we presented the lease to you guys to authorize our director to sign that lease. And in that lease, it stated that all TIs would be the responsibility of the leasee. So
there's nothing in there about a safe and accessible building or anything.
Well,
like that.
there is small provisions, but the tenant improvements were always going to be on the library as far as those negotiations went.
And I understand, putting in walls and doing all that kind of stuff, but just as a, safe building to run a business in.
Right, but there may be some legal thing that you're bringing up. We need to check with council, but other than the TIs were always expected to be on our shoulders.
All righty, Karen.
Yeah, if I recall from the discussion, a lot of the changes are due because it's a change of use of the building. That's what's driving that, which is really not the landlord's responsibility.
Right. Andy?
Couple of questions, please. Dave, I'm on page 113 at the top where it says, for this proposal, the scope of services was developed with an assumed cost per square foot of construction at $370. Did I understand you to say that that figure included a significant contingency beyond the initial budget estimate?
Yes.
I didn't see that anywhere in this document. Are there additional?
There are documents, and so they're kind of, so in order to proceed with what we've already contracted them to do on this project, which would be receive those documents, we have to kind of further expand their capability to bill us for those. And that's what this really is about. And like Jason said, the commission's already approved the surplus spending, which this is a part of, and this is just more of a formality because it exceeds Ann Hammond's ability to sign because it's over $50,000.
Understood. And one other question. I'm looking on page 114 at the exclusions, which are pretty numerous. And I guess I have a two-part question. Are some or many of these exclusions, in fact, things that we will have to do? And if so, are they things that we'll have to hire this firm for, or are they things for which we have internal capabilities on staff?
Well, for some of these things like signage design, that's we have internal staff. You just passed, again, $300,000 to do a signage program. That would be a part of that.
I'm looking specifically at, for example, accessibility report or accessibility requirement upgrades.
Okay, so the scope of the work has already been defined with the property line, so anything outside of that would not be our responsibility, nor are they going to do any design services for that.
So these exclusions only relate to things outside the property line?
Well, not just all of them. That one specific one, I would say yes.
Preparing a stormwater low-impact development report, is that something that we're required to?
No, we're not.
We're not required, okay. So I guess my general question is, they've itemized a large number of exclusions. Should we anticipate that Ann and the staff will have to come back to us for considerable additional monies to pay for things that have been excluded here?
Looking down that list, I do not see or anticipate any large amounts there. So like, for instance, if you go down to the gas, electric, telephone or cable or lighting studies, well, we've had the gas turned on and the water turned on and everything works fine. There's no need for a study. There's not like an environmental impact that needs to be done. Electrical service, they're not, like we've turned the power on, that works. Green building, we're not creating a green building, so they're not going to do any green building.
So this is just a generic laundry list.
It's a boilerplate thing. The ones that you were pointing out were the ones with the little asterisks on them. Those are the ones that, you could add in addition if you wanted to go really deep into this. But since it's not our building, since it's not going to be long-term, we don't need to do those things.
So you're not anticipating that we're going to have to contract for significant dollars for things that have been excluded on pages 114 and 115?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we've had a motion made and it's been seconded. Anyway, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, we have Barbara McKenzie is in opposition. Any abstentions? Okay, so everybody but Barbara McKenzie supports this. Okay. Moving on. Thank you, David and Lana, very much. And I also want to comment, I know that the building codes changed every 3 years. In 2020, January 2020, the new building code comes up. And every year they're making it stiffer and stiffer and harder for ADA and energy. So those are two things that very well could not have been anticipated a few months ago unless you were really involved in that kind of thing. So just FYI. Okay, so moving on to action items by resolution. And I just want to say it's the 100th anniversary of women's voting rights in 2020. And a small step towards equality, and we're still fighting. So anyway, I would like Paul Heavenridge, who was the one who brought this to our attention, to please read the resolution.
Okay, and I'm going to make the motion first. I move that the Sonoma County Library commemorates the year 2020 as the Women's Suffrage Centennial.
I second.
All right, I will read this in my best
1920, huh?
Best proclamation voice. Women's Suffrage Centennial Proclamation. Whereas 2020 marks the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, guaranteeing and protecting women's constitutional right to vote, and whereas this historic centennial offers an unparalleled opportunity to commemorate a milestone in democracy and explore its relevance to the issues of equal rights today, and whereas the Sonoma County Library, in partnership with the National Women's History Alliance, the Sonoma County 2020 Women's Suffrage Project, the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County, and other organizations, is committed to hosting programs which explore the long and complex history of the suffrage movement and acknowledges that guaranteeing voters' rights is an ongoing process, and whereas the Sonoma County Library is pleased to be able to coordinate suffrage-themed events throughout 2020, as well as make available resource materials, meeting spaces, and staff who can assist those wishing to resource the topic of suffrage at the local, state, and national level. And whereas the Sonoma County Library will officially kick off the Women's Suffrage Centennial with a presentation by nationally recognized historian, author, and feminist pioneer, Dr. Sally Roche Wagner, who will discuss her 2019 book, The Women's Suffrage Movement, on Monday, December 16th at the Central Santa Rosa Library Forum Room at 7 p.m. And whereas the Sonoma County Library looks forward to a year-long celebration of the Women's Suffrage Centennial that will engage, educate, empower, and inspire the community it serves to advance the principles established under the 19th Amendment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Sonoma County Library Commission hereby commemorates the year 2020 as the Women's Suffrage Centennial.
All right.
Okay, yay. I see.
So
and
it's
I just
been-
want to make one more comment. I want to thank Catherine Reinhardt and Ray Holly for getting this together. They wrote it, and thank you very much. It's very
So
good.
let's vote, let's pass it first.
Okay. Paul has moved.
And I seconded.
And Mackenzie and Andy dual seconded it again this time. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? And are there any abstentions? All right, so it's unanimously passed. Okay, thank you all. I think it's great that we're doing this. And thank you, Paul, for bringing it to our attention, and Catherine and Ray for working on it for us. Okay.
Oh, I just want to mention one other thing. I believe it's going to be, we talked about putting it on plaques or framed in all the libraries, the branches.
Yeah,
So.
there will be a copy in all the libraries. Rather pretty one, I've signed them around. Okay, discussion? Just skip that one, okay. Okay, are there any agenda items for future commission meetings that are, okay, Barbara, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd like to have a discussion on policy, like what's policy that commission decides on. Kind of our job is budget and policy, right? And three things that just popped into my mind, a couple of things were brought to my attention that we're lending out the audiovisual materials out of something called E Street Studios. I don't think we've had a presentation on, don't think we have a policy on. Another one is what's our lending policy on the Chromebooks. I'm not sure that we should have, that this goes to the commission. I'd just like to have a discussion about what should and shouldn't. A third one is that I understood, I just kind of overheard that we're not charging for copies at the library, whether that's the first copy or something. I'm not sure what it is, but it seems to be a policy that I didn't know about, and I don't know what level of things need to come to the commission.
Okay, Jason?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss at the next meeting energy independence for the library system. Kind of general discussion, and then move it forward from there.
Okay, energy independence, now do you mean by our being able to support ourselves if there's a fire or outage, or what?
Two items. One, supporting Sonoma Clean Power in its endeavor to basically own the grid itself, which is it's
okay.
Currently looking at that proposal.
Okay.
And then separately, backup generators. I just looked at here, 66.5 hours were missed during the Kincaid fire alone. And so looking at backup generating power or other alternatives to keep our libraries open, because I know, a lot of people are going to need a location to go to, and automatically pops into my mind if I need to charge my phone, basic services, where can I go? In an immediate pinch, and library is one of them. So I see it as an essential need, an essential service, in times where our power would be down. So secondary generating power, things of that nature.
Okay.
But from a practical standpoint, and then a broader, a separate standpoint, a policy issue.
All righty. Stephen?
Yes, I was requesting a written report about where we are with the Roseland Interim Branch Library. I understand that we're not going to get a timeline, but I think for transparency to the public, for those that, for whatever reason, don't want to tune in and listen to us, I think a written report that would be part of the packet that would then be public knowledge would be very helpful to inform the public who we're meeting with, what the result of the meeting was, and how that furthers us to try to get the improvements needed to be able to move in. So I'm not asking for a deadline, I understand that, but I'm asking for documentation of who's doing what with whom and what the outcome of those meetings were. Because many of us are very concerned about making sure that this happens, and many of us have many connections that we would be more than happy to lend in order to further move this along. Also, I would want to report, preferably in writing, about signage, because I go to that branch library after tutoring every Friday, and the signage says what it is that we intended to say, but it's now out of date. And I think that at a minimum, we can come up with some type of language to slap over the December 2019 anticipated date to stay tuned, go to this link, do something. I want some more transparency around the process. Thank you.
Okay. Any other items anybody would like on the agenda? Other items on the agenda? Okay. With that, our meeting is adjourned. The next meeting will be January 6th in 2020. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Enjoy your holidays, whatever kind you have. Happy New Year, et cetera, and I will see you in January.